This is Jeremy Swayman, and he is the Boston Bruins' superstar starting goalie. Or at least he should be. But after one ugly contract negotiation and a lot of noise in the media, the Boston Bruins are about to enter the season without their number one goalie. For management, Swayman, and especially Bruins fans, this has become a complete disaster. And when you piss off a superstar and call them out publicly, things can get ugly. But how valuable is Jeremy Swayman actually? And are the Boston Bruins truly in trouble without him? Or is Boston's system good enough to cover up this entire mess? Well, let's find out. It's no secret. All sides of this negotiation have been a complete mess. In order to understand how we got to this...
Well, I don't want to get into the weeds with what his ask is, but I know that I have 64 million reasons why I'd be playing right now.
This goes all the way back to before last season. Boston and Swayman went to arbitration over his expiring contract, where he was awarded a one-year deal worth $3.475 million. But in salary arbitration, things can get personal. And that's something that Swayman himself has brought up numerous times throughout the season when discussing a new contract extension. Now, although Swayman split the crease with former Vezina winner Linus Ullmark, he still put up a solid .916 save percentage and 2.53 goals against. However, when the playoffs rolled around, Jeremy Swayman was putting up numbers that very few in franchise history had possessed. Despite running into the Cup champs and being eliminated, he finished with a 2.15 goals against average and led the playoffs with a .933 save percentage. He was, without a doubt, the Bruins' most impactful player. Boston is a good team, but their strength lies within the crease with Ullmark and Swayman. So naturally, Boston decided to completely fumble the entire situation by trading Linus Ullmark to Ottawa at the beginning of the offseason. At the time of the trade, the return alone had people raising their eyebrows, but it also meant that Boston had essentially given away a large chunk of their leverage with trying to lock up Swayman. Then the drama starts. On the Spit and Chicklets podcast, it was leaked that the Bruins had given a relatively low offer of 4 years with a cap hit of $6.2 million to Swayman. That prompted the Bruins GM Don Sweeney to come out and shut that down while dunking on the podcast in the process.
Spit Up on Yourself podcast, and I did that on purpose, Joe, you're right. Because I'll go back to the inaccuracies of what everybody's reporting. I think it's bullshit that somebody says, I wouldn't return a call for 3 weeks. That's inaccurate.
With rumors swirling around everywhere and the fan base getting more anxious by the second, that brings us to this gem of a quote here by Cam Neely.
I don't want to get into the weeds with what his ask is, but I know that I have 64 million reasons why I'd be playing right now.
With the offer apparently being 8 times 8, Jeremy Swayman's agent, Louis Gross, decided to tweet out that that offer was never actually available. And if the name sounds familiar, it's because Louis Gross also represented Nylander a few years back when, he held out for 20 games until finally squeezing in a last-second deal in December. With how much this whole contract negotiation has been leaked through the media, the constant rumors and daily news about the Swayman update is absolutely everywhere. And there's even a potential that if the relationship is damaged enough, Swayman may request a trade. Now, from how all this transpired, both sides are clearly pissed off. But what exactly is each side thinking? Well, let's start with Swayman. Jeremy Swayman has made it clear that he knows what he's worth, and he's not going to take less and hurt his fellow goalies for when it's time to get their bag.
It's a nerve-wracking feeling because it's your family you're fighting for. And the answer I'm going to give you this year is that I've educated myself. I understand my comparables and how I can't ruin the goalie market for other guys that are going to be in my shoes down the line.
But is Swayman actually worth it? And is he as good as the numbers imply? Or is he backed by a stout defensive system? Well, I had goalie coach Rob Gearson help me take a deeper look at what Swayman does really, really well. Now, every goalie in pro hockey moves well. They can make saves and steal a game once in a while, but to differentiate from average and elite, one of the qualities to look out for is, do they play a repeatable game? Which basically means, would their game translate to another team with weaker defense? Are there a lot of moving parts? Are they consistent in their save selection and positioning? Are they way out in the white ice, which relies on a lot of movement and athleticism? Or are they efficient in their depth and movement around the crease? Are they consistently beating passes? Do they shoulder check and scan the ice consistently? All these questions and factors are essential when determining the quality of a goaltender. Swayman is one of the best goalies in the NHL at all these factors, and it's because he makes his game simple and repeatable. And because he plays such a simple game combined with elite puck tracking, skating, and rebound control, he doesn't need to make a ton of highlight reel saves because he's almost always in the right position to make the simple and repeatable save. This here is a good example of being under control initially on the push because he didn't over-challenge on the player outside the dot, but on the actual save, he's able to get out of his technique a little bit to reach out for the shot and make the save. The fact that he actually got his glove on this and controlled it shows that he's elite at tracking as well. Here, he beats the pass with good movement on the initial point shot and then staying calm and blocking on 2 of the rebounds. He's very comfortable in the butterfly that he doesn't mind just staying in it to block in tight so he doesn't open up any holes by overreacting to danger. This calmness in tight is one of the reasons why he doesn't give up a ton of rebounds. He's just letting it hit his body, absorb the puck, and not trying to do too much. Because he's so sound, he makes great scoring chances look like another boring save. Again, he doesn't cheat the game as well. Here, he makes a routine save that shows his patience and his willingness to stand his ground on bad angles with a player driving the net. Then he's able to make a great desperation save on the rebound with his own player falling into him. For a goalie that's so sound technically, he's got the ability to improvise and find a way to make a less than routine save by throwing his technique out the window. And when things get hairy too, you see what makes him so great mentally and technically. Despite a brutal turnover here, he still finds the most efficient route back to the crease and gets centered to make another routine save. A lot of goalies in this position would freak out, give up the net, and potentially create more problems, but not Swayman. Even on a nothing play, you can see the awareness with just his pre-scans. Despite the puck being in the corner, Swayman is constantly scanning the slot to understand where the pressure lies. Lastly is how good he is at sealing the ice with his pads while moving. In our most recent video, we highlighted how shooters and players are targeting goalies low specifically and within movement. In an era where pads are designed to shoot rebounds past an offensive team crashing the net, Swayman has a knack for keeping pucks close to him off his pads when he needs to. With all that being said, Jeremy Swayman only played 44 regular season games last season, splitting time with Ullmark. And in total for his career, he's only played in a grand total of 132 regular season games and 20 playoff games. From Boston's perspective, Swayman is a fantastic young goalie, but he's yet to take on the workload of a starting netminder, let alone one that is asking for $8 million plus a season. Boston is a team that believes that they can either create or emulate what Swayman brings to the table. A big reason why is because of this man, Bob Asensa. He's the Boston Bruins goalie coach hired by the Bruins ahead of the 03-04 season. Bob has become one of the most revered goalie coaches in the hockey world. During his 20-year tenure in Boston, the Bruins have finished as a top 10 goals against average team 15 times and have been inside the top 5 12 times. Boston has also won 4 Vezinas with 3 different goalies in that time, with a Calder trophy going to Andrew Raycroft. And I know Leaf fans are thinking if he can turn that guy into a Calder winner, he can do the Lord's work. Asensa also has a track record of improving goaltenders once they arrive in Boston. You can go back as far as 2008 to Alex Auld, all the way throughout the 2010s with guys like Khudobin, Johnson, Halak, and as recently as Linus Ullmark. In Buffalo, Ullmark was thought of as just an average starter, but once coming to Boston, he became statistically the best goalie in the league in 2023. Now, the next project is Joonas Korpisalo. Boston seems confident that their staff can bring stability to the crease. However, Korpisalo has a much different style that is far more erratic than Jeremy Swayman. Last season, Korpisalo was statistically the worst goalie in the NHL. The man had a really rough go at it. The blame, of course, doesn't fall solely on him. Defensively, the Sens weren't great. They ranked 25th in scoring chances allowed in 5-on-5 play, and these weren't easy scoring chances by any means. Whether it was a bad turnover for a rush chance against or a straight up breakaway, Ottawa had a knack of making life hard on their goaltender. That being said, Korpisalo was not great. Where things get interesting for Korpisalo in Boston is that they play the exact same structure as Ottawa in the D zone, which is a box +1. The Sens had issues, but sometimes they would lose their check after the initial shot, but poor rebound control leaves the opposing team a grade A chance to score. For Boston, their D-core is massive with no player under 6'1". The D-core is built to physically overwhelm its opponents in front of the net and down low. Where they might struggle is, of course, with foot speed off the rush. So although Korpisalo may get some extra help with tying up sticks in front and cleaning up some rebounds, he'll still need to tame his movements and beat passes a lot more efficiently to make sure that he's not over-aggressive and chasing the play. Of course, Jeremy Swayman is a better goalie, but with a more structured team in all three zones, the game in front of Korpisalo may become easier to read. Combine that with some coaching, and it could be a reason why Boston isn't ready to empty the bank account for Jeremy Swayman. All of this is a big, gigantic if and gamble on a goalie who struggled immensely last season. Regardless, it looks like Boston is going to be without their biggest strength to start the season. What's going on behind closed doors is up for debate, but despite both sides doing what they can to shift public perception for leverage, this situation has gotten ugly really fast. And at the top of his game, Jeremy Swayman is one of the best goalies in the league. But with a smaller track record and a history of creating solid goalies, Boston feels like they can go on without him. The fan base is getting restless, and the rest of the league is along for the ride. The result is one of the most intriguing situations going into the 24-25 season, and it's one that could completely change the dynamic of the Atlantic Division. Once again, big shout out and thank you to Rob Gearson for helping out in this video. Whether you're a young goalie or you want to learn more about NHL goaltending, he's got a fantastic page on Instagram and Twitter that I'll leave in the description for you to check out.